Your low end can be scientifically perfect, but still feel weak. Listen to this. Now listen to this. The first one is scientifically perfect, but definitely weaker, right? So first let's talk about what is scientifically perfect low end. And then let's talk about everything else that is important to create a powerful bass line. So to achieve a powerful bass line, you first need to understand the science behind how your bass and kick interact with each other. So a bass is predominantly a sine wave, and a kick is also a sine wave. So when I take a sine wave and put another one exactly on top, what will happen? It will sound twice as loud. But if you shift one of the sine waves across the timeline, they start to cancel each other out and you will have a reduction in volume. So if you think about your kick and bass as two sine waves, to get the most out of your bass line, you need to make sure that they don't cancel each other out. I will show you how to do that in your production, but there are a few other things that you need to consider if you want to create a powerful bass line. First, you need to choose the right kick for your track. If you make peak time techno, you want a boomy, sub-heavy and distorted kick. But if you make dark, psychedelic techno, you might want a clean, more rounded kick. If you make house, you want still a punchy but a slightly dirty kick. And if you make psytrance, you want a punchy kick with a fat body and transient. And by the way, you can download all of these kicks for free in the description below. Now, do you need to tune your kick? Well, scientifically speaking, a kick in the key of C would work best with a bass in the key of G. Why is that? Because they are 7 semitones apart. And that interval is known as the perfect fifth, which is known to sound very pleasant together. But look at this kick. Now look at this one. And this. And this one. Can you tell what's happening with these kicks? None of them has a distinctive key. Because a kick is not a single note. A kick is a sine wave that is pitching down, and therefore it travels across all the frequency spectrum and goes through many different notes. Notice that the main difference between all the kicks that I showed you before is not so much with the low end, but it's with the transient of the kick. The transient of the kick can help to bring out the vibe and emotions of your track. And by the way, if you want to improve your music production in the same way that Adam, Yassine and Bruno are now playing in festivals and clubs and even got music playing on BBC Radio, then click the link below, fill up the form, just a few simple questions, and let's get it rolling. So I'm going with this kick and I'm going to create a rolling bass line for a dark techno track. I feel that a rolling bass line is being used in a lot of different genres, so that's why I'm going with this one today. So when designing a bass, you first of all want to start with its body. So I have here 3 notes in D0. Let's start first of all with opening filter 1, getting the cutoff quite low, a little bit of drive, make it fat, phase and phase randomization to 0. Let's get the attack to 0 on both envelopes, and let's create some sort of a placky shape like this. So creating the body is pretty simple, but this bassline is far from finished. Next, let's shape the transient. So I took another envelope, a really tight one like this, add it on filter 2. Notice the difference before and after. So that's one thing that you can do to shape the transient, but I really like to add a diffuser. I will start by adding 7 strokes, and adding a little bit of resonance. If you look at the analyzer, you can see that I help to add a little bit more weight to the transient. But the main reason why your bass still feels weak is because you don't have enough mid frequencies. So let's add a splitter so we can work just on the mids, and we will add a distortion. For the distortion, I will go with linear fold, and I will reduce it. Nice, but I'm not done yet. If you want to add a little bit of color and richness to the transient of your bass, this is what I will do next. I know that a lot of people will be against this, but I'm going to add reverb to this bass line. In Ableton, you have the hybrid reverb. If you don't know what a convolution reverb is, imagine that if I clapped my hands in this room, did you hear the reflections from my clap bouncing from the walls? I can record that and put that in the plugin, right in this window, and use that as a reverb. So let's turn the blend all the way to the left, and the important thing is to EQ all of the lower frequencies, so we have no interference of reverb in our sub-frequencies. So listen to the before and after, and listen to the transient, the first initial bit of the bass. It makes it sound a little bit more rich and adds something to the transient. And the cool thing is you can flip between all of these impulse responses and get a completely different character for your bass, like a club toilet. Now, I'm not done yet because we have few very important steps left, and I see so many producers fail with the next one. So whenever I have a new student, they always complain that the bass is not loud enough. Now, if your bass is not loud enough, all you need to do is just crank up the volume. So grab an analyzer, this is a free one, I will link it below, and just crank it up until you are in the red. You must agree that this sounds much more powerful. Now next, you need to check for phasing issues. Now if you have phase issues, your bass naturally will sound weaker. You remember how before I showed you how two sine waves interact with each other, and if they don't align perfectly, they start to cancel each other out. So think about this area of the bass line. We have a bass note and the kick. If this is not aligned perfectly together, they will cancel each other out. That's why you need this analyzer. I'm going to mute this part of the bass as I play it so you can see the difference. So to solve this, we need to record the bass to audio. Let's do that just with one of the notes. So you can actually see now recording this bass note. First of all, we have a little bit of latency. And also the bass note is actually longer than the MIDI note. Right, so we can see that we have a little bit of an issue. So the way to deal with it is to drop it into a new channel, add a little bit of EQ, and just cut off some of the lower frequencies, the very, very low frequencies. So yes, it is important that a bass is interacting perfectly with the kick, but it can still sound weak if you don't focus on shaping the body, shaping the transient, shaping the midtones, and adding some color with the reverb. So, I hope you learned something in this video, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.